All right, good morning, everyone. I will call the recommending meeting to order June 18th, 2018 at 10 a.m. Item number 1 is called to order. I just did that. Item number 2 is compliance with the open meeting law. We're good there? Thank you. All right. Mr. Sanchez has asked that number 7 be pulled first. Is that right, Orlando? Okay, so we'll go to item number 7, which is bill number 2018-17 for possible action, amends ordinance number 3992, previously amended by ordinances 5520 and 6209, creating self-improvement district number 707, the Summerlin area, sponsored by Mike Jansen, Director of Public Works.
Good morning. This is, for the record, Alan Pabelka, City Engineer. And this ordinance authorizes the execution of the addendum to 707. And during the course of construction, the actual costs come in lower. So we have some excess funding for this SID. And with that, we want to put in a signal at Far Hills and Laurel Glen Drive, and it now meets warrants, where in the past it hasn't. Currently, there's a 4-way stop there with flashing yellow lights. So that's what this one's for.
Okay, I will open up the public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on agenda item number 7? I don't see anyone. I'll close. Any questions or comments? Yes, okay, Councilman Coffin.
Thanks. Mike, on the SID, do the people, who are the taxpayers on this? Is it the Hughes Company or?
Well, it's, the SID is funded by the city, but then the residents actually pays, quarterly.
Okay. All right.
Or
so everybody's aware of this?
Yes.
They need it? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Okay, Councilman Coffin moves for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We're voting. All right, let's go ahead and do it electronically. So go ahead and vote. And post. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll do it that way from now on. All righty. Item number 3. Bill number 2018-13 for possible action updates the land use in rural neighborhoods preservation element of the Las Vegas 2020 Master Plan to establish the form-based code land use designation and transect zones as allowable zoning categories, proposed by Robert Summerfield, Director of Planning. So who's going to speak to this? Oh, there you are. Hi. Go right ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So this is a bill that just codifies into the city's master plan a general plan amendment that was before this council a couple meetings ago. Again, this changes the text of the master plan, specifically in the land use and rural neighborhood preservation element, that will allow us, as we continue to look at using form-based code as a zoning tool in our downtown to implement the downtown master plan. This simply updates the language of the master plan to allow that as a potential future zoning district. It does not change the zoning of any current districts or the general plan designation of any current property. It just simply makes the text changes that would allow us to, in the future, adopt some form-based code standards and do eventual rezoning. I would note, I did pass out before the start of the meeting an updated exhibit map as a part of the, when this item comes before the council for vote. There will be a First Amendment. We do need to update the exhibit map in the land use element to correspond with that updated exhibit that I passed out beforehand. That First Amendment is not before you today. That will be at council when this item comes up for adoption. But just to make sure that you all were aware that we are proposing to update the map to correspond to the updated downtown overlay. With that, I'm available if there are any questions.
Oh, here it is. I got it. Yeah, okay. Okay, we'll go open it up for questions. Councilman Coffin.
Thank you. I guess that in Ward, I don't know if there's any rural or estate. There is a little bit of that in Ward 3 to the east side of the ward. I'm not sure there's anything in this blue section in Ward 3. Most of it is to the east of this. However, and you're right to not cause people to panic whenever something like this says rural in it, because it means that there's going to be some sort of change in their country kind of life. It's also our first move into form-based language. Can we, as we get closer to county islands and things like that, can we create something that is to comfort people in those islands, create a language that is, through form-based, the same as the county uses currently, what they bought, you know, what they moved into?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so Councilman Coffin, yes, as a part of the form-based code, we're creating those standards as from scratch, essentially, with our consultant. So as we would look at any form-based code that may be near or against a county island in the downtown area, I think Ward 1 is probably the closest we come to any of the county islands,
Yep.
and even there, I'm not quite sure that we hit any. But yes, we can definitely include language about matching county island standards. To your point, though, I do want to be clear, the name of the element is the land use and rural preservation neighborhood element. The change that we're making really is only to the downtown, to introduce the form-based code or the transect zoning district language. And it only affects the downtown overlay, which only is downtown, the downtown area. This would not affect Ward 6, or again, I don't believe we get close to any of the county islands, but if in the future, if we do get close, we get to, well, actually you all, as the city council, get to propagate those rules, so we can include language as you've suggested.
Well, okay, I'm sorry I got ahead of us on that issue, but it probably will be useful to have that answer. Thanks, thank you very much.
Okay, I'll open up to public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to be heard on this item? All right, I'll close public comment. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just to clarify something that Mr. Summerfield said, because we're asking you to adopt these amended maps, what we'd like you to do is actually approve a First Amendment to send on to the council. You don't see it in writing because none of the text of the ordinance will change. It will just be a swapping out of these maps, but we do want to ask you to approve it as a First Amendment, and then that document will appear in front of you on Wednesday as a First Amendment with the amended maps.
Great, thank you. Okay, do I have a motion
Yes, motion to approve?
with First Amendment?
Yep.
Okay, I have a motion to approve with First Amendment. Please vote. And post. Motion carries unanimously. This item, let's see, 13 will be heard at the June 20th, 2018 City Council meeting. And the one we just heard, item number 7, which is 2018-17, will be heard at the July 18th, 2018 City Council meeting. So we will now go to item number 4. Okay, we'll go to item number 4, bill number 2018-14 for possible action, amends LVMC Chapter 6.50 to expand the downtown area within which a tavern limited license may be issued for an outdoor entertainment complex, sponsored by Councilman Bob Coffin. Who would like to speak on this?
So, Chairman, members of the committee, so this is an amendment to Chapter 6.50 that addresses, currently, the only outdoor entertainment complex we have is the Downtown Container Park. This would provide some additional geography so that that model, which has been very successful, can be replicated in other areas of downtown, specifically in the Fremont corridor. And it is limited to the addition of some updated boundaries that reflect, let's see, an area that's bounded by Ogden on the north, 11th Street on the east, Carson on the south, and 8th Street on the west. So it's a relatively limited area of expansion to allow for this outdoor entertainment complex to model to be used in other areas in downtown.
Okay, thank you. Public comment, anybody from the public wishing to be heard, come on down here and grab a microphone and state your name.
Yes, good morning. For the record, John Curran, 701 East Bridger, here on behalf of Downtown Project. Just to further clarify what Director Sommerfeld said, this would help enable us duplicate some of the successes we've had at Container Park, which we've successfully operated without major incident for going on 5 years now. We hope to do something similar first at the Ferguson's project at 1028 Fremont Street, common consumption area with separate Tavern Limited operators and licenses around that. So fairly straightforward. Again, we have a proven track record, 5 years at Container Park, so some of the initial concerns that were raised 5 years ago, I think have been answered with 5 years of successful operation.
And what do you do at Container Park?
Well, Container Park is an outdoor entertainment and retail experience. It's a similar thing. It's got,
What's your affiliation with it?
Well, I'm not very operationally involved with Container Park. I was involved with the permitting, licensing, entitlements. I help manage Downtown Project's real estate portfolio.
Great.
So I'm a big Container Park enthusiast.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Maybe he should stay up. I'd like to ask him a question.
Sure.
Thank you. John, the 11th Street is mentioned as the eastern boundary. Any particular reason for that particular street as opposed to Maryland or 13th?
You know, I was thinking Maryland might make more sense. That's a bigger street and maybe perhaps a better sort of end boundary. For our intents and purposes, we hope to achieve this at 1028 Fremont Street, which is within the 11th Street boundary. But to me, Maryland might make sense as a bigger artery and a better boundary. But
Well, I think this idea has been kicking around for a while, and I'm worried that I don't want to slow it down any more because I have a feeling you guys need to move fast. It's been talked about enough. So that's okay, and I guess we should consider why we stop at that street as opposed, they filled the request. I think that's it. But in a broader sense, we have to look a little bigger, I think. Will this also affect the little playground behind the D that Derek Stevens has set up?
no, I believe this would be from Las Vegas Boulevard to 11th Street, so it would not affect anything west of Las Vegas Boulevard and what Derek Stevens is doing
Okay.
there.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the public wishing to comment? All right, I'll close public comment. Any other questions or comments up here? Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Please vote. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously, and this item will be heard at the July 18th, 2018 City Council meeting. All right. Item number 5, Bill number 2018-15 for possible action amends LVMC titles 6 and 7 to update the licensing and animal control permit provisions governing pet shops and associated businesses by establishing additional requirements pertaining to the sale of dogs and cats, including updated fee requirements, sponsored by Councilman Stephen Soroka.
Councilman, if I may, I'm going to have Katie Sears, she's going to give me a presentation. As you know, our thematic goal is to groom upcomers within the city to go out there and start moving up for us. People are outing ourselves, getting ready to retire. So Katie Sears is going to be giving the presentation, but before that, I would like to thank all the staff members that worked on this throughout the several months, from the mayor's office, Councilman Fiore's office, Councilman Soroka's office, Councilwoman Tarkanian's office, and also our external stakeholders. I think we've done a fantastic job. We had the meeting inside the council chambers because we thought we were going to be packed with people, but apparently we did enough reach out and a lot of stakeholders reach outs, and I think everyone's satisfied. So that said, I'm turning it over to Katie. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Hi.
Thank you, Orlando. Yes, so we do have a presentation prepared for you today.
Go ahead and identify yourself.
I'm sorry. For the record, Katie Sears, City Manager's Office. So we will be presenting a presentation for you today that does cover items 5 and 6 on the agenda regarding the pet store ordinance revisions.
Okay, well, let me, should I read in number 6 too, Val, then? Or since they're doing a presentation on both?
If that's the desire of the presenters, that's what we should
Yes,
do.
they're separate ordinances covered by the same presentation.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read number 6 in, and we'll just kind of go from there. So, item number 6, bill number 2018-16 for possible action amends LVMC Chapter 7.14 to generally require the spaying and neutering of ferrets, rabbits, and pot-bellied pigs, remove an exception from the spaying or neutering requirement for service animals, and require certain establishments that sell or make available for adoption certain animals to provide notification regarding the requirements of LVMC Chapter 7.14, and to include the cost of spay and neutering within the cost of transactions regarding such animals, sponsored by Councilman Steve Soroka. Okay, so they've both been read into the record, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. So yes, this effort was a result of the repealed ordinance of the Las Vegas Municipal Code 7.40315. That was repealed November 15th. Since then, this has been a collaborative effort with our City of Las Vegas departments, animal control and business licensing, and our council staff, along with community partners such as stakeholders that are invested in the cause of the animal welfare and animal activists. So since then, go. And that was the original ordinance, which prohibited pet shops from selling or disposing dogs, cats, or pot-bellied pigs, other than those obtained from an animal care facility or nonprofit animal rescue organization. So following the repeal, we began an analysis of best practices throughout the nation. And then we also assessed our city departments and what could be done better, or what could we be doing to improve the problem or to end the problem of puppy mills and improve our services within the city. And then what was important to our internal committee was also to engage community stakeholders and engage them in the process so we can also include their input and concern. So you can see here an outline of our timeline and the action that we took since November. Our timeline is within the limit of our moratorium that was in place, which began in December, and then we also extended it, and it does expire this month. So the process, can be completed in time of the moratorium expiration. We also had 2 stakeholder engagement sessions that were separated by government agencies and business, and then the second one was focused on our animal welfare organizations, so we can include both perspectives and include everyone's voice. So as a rough outline of the changes that were made to the ordinance and the solutions that we proposed to council, here's an outline of just the requirements for the pet stores. So it amends Title 6 and 7 of the Municipal Code and licensing and animal control requirements. We are enforcing the business licensing and animal control requirements upon breeders, pet shops, and distributors. So that was the key change that was made, and the goal is to increase the level of audit and inspection. So the reports that are submitted to the city and to animal control will now be audited by business licensing. We also include microchip requirements. So upon the delivery, the distributors deliver the animals to the pet stores, the animals must be microchipped. And part of the audit process will include city staff reviewing the reports that are submitted and making sure that the breeders that are supplying the animals to the pet stores are compliant with state requirements and the USDA requirements as well, and making sure that our microchip information is also included. I'd like to also point out that the civil penalties that are in the ordinance are limited by the Nevada Revised Statutes, and we're allowing the parties involved 6 months to comply with our new ordinance. So the separate ordinance involves spay and neuter requirements. Yes, sir. So they are 2 separate ordinances. The second involves the spay and neuter requirements, and this was the concern of our city council. So originally, the ordinance was only intended for dogs and cats. So we've extended the requirements to also apply to ferrets, rabbits, and pot-bellied pigs. And then upon that, we also realized that Originally, the spay and neuter requirements were based on the honor system. There was no real enforcement of the spay and neuter procedure. So we've also included in the ordinance more follow-up and audit and inspection on the reports submitted to business licensing on the animals that were sold. What is the plan for that animal to complete the spay and neuter procedures? And then there's also enforcement details in the ordinance, as well as the exemptions of animals that are not required to have the procedure. So I'd like to emphasize that we are increasing the level of enforcement, so that will also require an increase in staff within our city departments, particularly animal control and business licensing. And based on the amounts that we've totaled and in our business impact statement, that is roughly the cost of what the city will have to provide for the staff necessary to enforce this new ordinance. Okay.
Yes, I have a couple of questions, I'm sure
Okay.
you up here. So the original intent of the pet store ban was to, we weren't sure where, I'll just use the example of dogs, where dogs were coming from, what the origination point was, and if they ended up in a pet store in order to be sold. So the intent was to ban those businesses to ensure that pet stores did not buy dogs from these horrendous puppy mills and they end up in pet stores being sold. So I guess my question is, since we have not banned pet stores, we've repealed that, based on this ordinance, what does this ordinance do to ensure that the dogs that are being sold out of a pet store don't come from a puppy mill based out of Missouri or Pennsylvania in these horrendous conditions? So
Correct.
I'm assuming that ordinance addresses that.
Yes.
So how is it, and I'm glad you're beefing up the enforcement and the money. So when you go into a pet store and you find a dog, what are you inspecting? And how is that inspection ensuring that they're coming from legitimate breeders that are treating these dogs humanely?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, sir. Our ordinance is holding our pet stores accountable for where they are receiving the animals. So what we've added is the breeders and the distributors are having business licensing requirements applied to them. So the pet store will have to provide that information on where they're receiving the animals to the city. And then our city staff will follow up on compliance and then have the information of where the animals are coming from. So our distributors will have to be licensed, and that information will be provided to the pet stores upon delivery. And that is one of what we've identified as a goal of this ordinance, is to have our animal control staff inspect the delivery process. So arrive upon delivery and ask for the reports from the distributor, and then throughout our audit process, the city will be identifying that information on where the animals are coming from.
So if the dog is coming from a breeder from out of state,
That breeder must be in compliance with the state requirements.
and how do you ensure that?
We will have that information that's provided to us from the pet store. So the pet store will have to provide the breeder information to the city.
Okay, so you get a piece of paper that says the dog came from ABC breeder out of, I don't know, Pennsylvania. Okay, that's what it says, right? Okay, so-
Councilman Anthony, if I might help you out there, Mary McElhone, Deputy Planning Director. So in the new ordinance, there's a couple of big changes that have been made. So there's a quarterly report that is going to be sent into the city of Las Vegas, and it is going to have the breeder information on it. One of the things that we do plan on doing in business licensing through our business licensing auditors is to check with compliance with these stores. So some of the changes that we've made is, besides the fact that they do have to have a USDA license, we have some other criteria in there. So within 2 years immediately previous to the purchase, they could not have been cited by the USDA for a direct or critical non-compliance item. And they also cannot have 3 or more non-compliance items that are identified under the Animal Welfare Act. Also, on the 2 most recent visits by the USDA, they cannot have been cited for no access violations. This is basically where the USDA goes in to inspect the breeder, and the breeder does not allow them access, or sometimes the breeder's not there. So these combined with doing a semi-annual and I would say audit, a mini audit when they go to renew their licensing fees, we're going to do a sampling of where these puppies have been sold from to get an idea of compliance.
Okay, all right, yeah, so Councilman Fiore mentioned it's an audit, so you'll be auditing these breeders. So if you find a breeder that has violations and so on and so forth, what happens at that point?
So at that point in time, Councilman, so the actual pet shops are on a semi-annual license. So that license renews on an annual basis. So what would happen is, at that point in time, we do have violations that we would cite them for. If the violations continued, we would bring them forward before City Council for a disciplinary complaint. And at that point in time, you can further fine them, or you could revoke their license.
Okay. So I have it on good authority from Animal Control. You will be doing some very vicious auditing of these pet stores to make sure that these breeders are good breeders that are ending up in these pet stores. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm Sergeant Levitt from City Animal Control, but yeah, we're going to, upon delivery, when we first start out, we're going to be doing inspections when they deliver. So we'll be scanning for microchips to find out where the animals originated from. And then with business licensing, we'll be working together to make sure that they're in compliance, the actual breeders where they're coming from.
Okay.
So, but we're going to be double checking, because right now they don't come in microchipped. We're going to make sure every animal is microchipped, so it has a paper trail, so we know exactly where it's coming from, other than a piece of paper.
Okay.
Chairman Anthony, this is Orlando Sanchez.
Yes.
Real brief, when we first started this out, it was said by the mayor and city council, they wanted to make sure they had the most strict rules, but relaxed rules, and make sure that we were meeting the requirements that we prohibit puppy mills. So the main thing that we're trying to do is from our seed and sale, like we did with the medical marijuana and now marijuana, we know where the marijuana is coming from. Same thing with the animal with that chip. It has an address, USDA number, where it's coming from, and all the information of the breeder. So we know if the breeder is a clean breeder or not. So we have a way of going out there and actually reconciling our records to make sure that they're a clean operator and they're not running a puppy mill.
Okay. I have a couple other questions, but okay, Councilman Coffin?
Thank you. Sergeant, chime in if you've got the answer on these things. Thanks for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think you've been in my neighborhood before. You know, I have a community cat colony there on 5th Place.
Yes.
So I'm familiar with microchipping, but not as much as I should, because it just occurred to me, I don't really know all that's on that chip, and I don't know what else could be put on these chips. Or how do you verify the truth of what's on the chip? You know, these days you can put anything you want to on a chip, and when you put it in transdermally, you know, you kind of think, well, it was done by a vet or it was done by somebody, but I guess anybody could put one in, couldn't they?
Yes.
How do we know that what is on the chip is certifiably true, other than the fact that there's a chip there and it shows up on a scan and so on?
Well, on the scan, it just comes up with a number, and with that number, you have to find out which microchip company is going to be used. Most of them are done by veterinarians, especially with the breeding community. I don't know about out-of-state breeders, but most of them are done by vets here. So paper trail would originate from the vet. They're the ones that gave it, and then from there, the person's responsible for registering the information in the system.
Is there a weak spot in the system here in this without, you know, just an unintended weak spot where you have the chip requirement, but we're really not saying where it should be done or who should do it, what qualifications the person should have? I'm just wondering if we are going to trust a breeder to chip them, or if we have some ability to control who chips, for example, requiring a local licensed veterinarian to chip these animals.
I don't know what the law is on who's allowed to or who's not to, especially out of state. But here, it's done by a veterinarian or a vet tech being supervised by a veterinarian. That's locally.
But we have no control over who does it then at this point, do we?
No.
Okay. All right, I don't know what paragraph that is in there. And this thing has to pass, or we're out of legislation. We have to start over again. Help me out.
Chairman Anthony, if I may, please. Also, if you look on page 6, line 4, it talks about the state licensing requirements, the state permit numbers, the breeder and broker, and et cetera. This is a requirement, and USDA, all these have to be registered with the USDA when they do the annual inspection or their biannual inspection, whatever the USDA does. They have to be USDA certified breeders. So when they get their state license from whatever their state they're from, it has to make sure that it has the following information, and that's going to be a requirement placed on the store itself, that they only go with registered companies and breeders that actually follow USDA guidelines. So a lot of that partnership, we've been working with the store owners that they will oblige to those obligations, and we will continue to audit it throughout the year.
Well, thank you, Orlando. Well, or anybody can help. Then if, we probably have access to a database of all states, I expect, which would show us then if a breeder was cited for violating USDA regs on the chips and so on. Do we have access to all of that?
They're not required to do microchipping per state. The USDA doesn't require that. That's something that we're requiring the pet shops before they purchase an animal or when they go through their brokers, that the animals come in microchipped so we know where they originated from.
So the microchip could be done by anybody in that chain of I'm a little worried about that. I don't know whether,
Councilman Kaufman?
I don't trust that thing.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like surgery. You can't, I really seriously doubt in other states they're going to allow you to cut an animal and insert a chip in unless they're a vet tech or a veterinarian. So I don't know exactly the question that you have about not trusting chipping, but it can't be done by you or I because we don't know how to do it. And we're not licensed, and we can't cut into an animal without having been trained across America.
If I could just follow up with using the councilwoman's thoughts, Sergeant Levitt, if you have any skill at all around animals, you're going to know how to put one of these in, as I understand. It's not hard. And it's just transdermally, so it's just underneath the skin. It's not implanted deep into the body.
No, it's done by a needle. They put the chip in a needle. It's a high gauge needle, and then they insert it into the animal.
Yeah, so they really don't have to cut.
No, it's done
And
by a
so
needle.
it's quite simple for a tech or anybody else. My point is, I guess, I don't want to say, I don't want to hold this bill up, but I want to just sort of see what we can do about knowing more about that chain of custody of that animal. Because if that's all we're really relying upon, and then somebody's statement, you know, we have lies told every day in that business. And I just think maybe it could be the subject of an amendment later on down the line, as long as I'm raising it today. That would be not my intention to ask for a bill right now, but rather just say, let's look at it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's open it up to public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to be heard, come on up. State your name.
Thank you, Councilman. Good morning. Mark Newman, 10021 Crimson Palisades Place, also Ward 2 liaison. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. These ordinances are the collaboration of all sides on this issue participating in our stakeholder meetings, working together to come to a common ground to address a problem. We listened to all of the people before the council since Councilman Soroka was elected into office about inhumane breeding conditions, aka puppy mills, and their impact on our shelter in Las Vegas and community at large. The previous ordinances would utilize a particular business model to prohibit the sales of certain pets, dogs, cats, and potbelly pigs, unless they came from a shelter or rescue. The Ward 2 office was thorough listening to the passionately delivered information about the need to eliminate puppy mills, and we asked a lot of questions. Most importantly, we asked how we would be preventing puppy mill dogs from entering Southern Nevada if we don't allow stores to sell them within our city limits, but the same puppy mill dogs could be adopted out through our stores under this new policy that had been repealed. Next, we asked how did the puppy mill dog change from being a problem dog that needed to be addressed to completely okay just because it passed through a shelter or rescue. The resulting dialogue provided the need for a deeper look at how we eliminate puppy mill dogs from our stores, regardless of them being adopted out through a shelter or rescue or sold at retail prices directly from the breeder in our stores. We also learned most of the dogs going into our shelters do not have microchips, and the microchip records need better upkeep. And the Animal Foundation estimated only 20% of the dogs in our community have microchips. The shelter adopts the dogs out with microchips, and the stores sell dogs with microchips. So where are the dogs without microchips coming from that are entering our shelter? They're coming from unlicensed businesses breeding them in their own city and throughout southern Nevada. They're also coming in through the airport and outside our jurisdiction, most notably through a website called Puppy Spot. Without going too far off track, Councilman Soroka laid out 5 key points that needed to be addressed to target the problem, which was refined to 3 points of action and an emphasis on generating revenue to address the problem. 1 was to increase the percentage of microchip pets by 6% a year for 5 years to average 50% of microchip pets in our community. Hopefully, half of animal control's calls are easily solved to enable them to better stretch the resources through available data. 2nd was to have the companion animals being sold in our stores not being used for breeding purposes by having our spay and neuter laws closer to our shelters policies where the dogs don't go home unaltered. Provisions in our ordinances are present for the wellness of the dogs and the effect altering will have, so pet owners can have a license with the city if that is needed. 3rd is our new licensing program from birth to best friend. The revenue generated from this model will offset our shelter and animal control expenses. The transports and brokers bringing our future pets into our city will now need to be licensed with us, and pet owners should have clarity and transparency of where their pet came from and how they became their best friend. Being able to frequently audit businesses and the pets they have been delivering to our stores will enable us to determine which businesses are bringing the best pets to our future pet parents and prevent businesses from continuing to do business with our pet stores if they don't meet our expected standards. We can't prevent every pet that is in either our stores or shelters from ever being ill, but we can mitigate the problems better through increased oversight. From birth to best friend will be effective through clarity, transparency, and auditing of better records. We will know which breeders, through audits of our records, we prefer not bringing pets into our community, and better guidance to the brokers of the standards we set for our citizens. The more microchip pets in our communities provide for faster times rehoming those pets and less space occupied by them in our shelters. Better records of unaltered pets and stronger spay and neuter laws provide less guesswork to our animal control officers and less unaltered pets in our community over time. Thank you for allowing me to address the room today.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to be heard? Okay, I'll close public comment. Councilwoman Fiore.
Thank you. And Sergeant Levitt, can I have your first name?
Cynthia?
Cynthia, thanks, just for the record. And then also, again, I have to give kudos to Councilman Soroka and his staff and everyone else that's worked diligently on this to make sure we address all your concerns and Councilman Coffin's concerns, and all the people. And the reason why you see this room empty is because literally Ward 2 has done an incredible job reaching out, having 20-something meetings with all stakeholders, and this is how we came up with this. So I must congratulate Soroka for doing an incredible job on this ordinance, and I move to approve this bill.
Okay, I'll just make one final comment. I mean, I voted to ban pet stores way back when we did this, and I voted against the repeal. But it sounds like you all have put in a lot of time and effort to reach the goal, and this is the most important thing, is to do whatever we can in the city of Las Vegas to make sure that these dogs that end up in pet stores don't come from puppy mills. And in the past, I put my faith in the city employees, and they always come through. So I'm going to put my faith in our city employees to make sure that goal is achieved, and I think you're going to do the best you can to make sure that happens. So, yeah, I have to concur with Councilwoman Fiore. Let's give this a shot, and like I said, I have complete faith in you making sure that happens. So we have a motion on the floor. Go ahead and vote. And post. Motion carries on item number 5, bill number 6. How about a motion on bill number 6?
I have questions.
Yes, we have questions on bill number 6.
Thank you. They are considerably different, the two bills, and so while we heard them technically for, together, there are some differences. For example, the idea of starting to name by, not gender, but by species, I guess, those animals that ought to be spayed and neutered, and I've been kidding the councilman a lot about spaying ferrets. And pigs, I don't know if pigs actually go around propagating like rabbits and cats because they can't jump fences as easily. But it's like, what? Have we got a lot of ferrets out there that are multiplying? And
Oh, my God.
I heard something. Tell me, did you have something to say on that?
No.
Honest to God, I thought I heard her say a moan. Maybe it was just a moan. What about ferrets? Why ferrets?
Councilman, thank you for pointing that out. We don't have statistical data on a ferret issue. However, we have kept this consistent with the rest of the ordinances that relate, or the animal control ordinances related to this matter. These animals are classified differently, so we've basically kept this group to keep it consistent, because there's also exotic animals that have other requirements as well. So basically, to keep the ordinance consistent, we've included this group of species.
Okay, well, sterilization is always a controversial item. I haven't heard from anybody saying we can't require ferrets to be sterilized or any of these others. I mean, there's a reason for them being in the bill. I'm sure the councilman understands what he's proposing. Are there any other animals that ought to be considered to be in this category?
Councilman, we've also worked with the county on this effort, and because this will also require a regional effort of enforcement, so to also keep things consistent with the county is also considered. It has not been brought to our attention that other animals should be listed. So this is this has been a result of the efforts that we've done with the county and our internal committee.
Okay, is this an attempt to stop people from breeding them?
No.
Is there a backdoor way to do that? Is that what's going on here?
No.
Okay, all right. I think
If they would like to breed them, they will be required to obtain a breeder's permit.
Oh, I see, and so
Yes.
they would not have
And
to
a business license.
sterilize, okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve item number 6?
Yes, a motion to approve item number 6.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and vote. And post. Motion carries unanimously. These two bills will be heard at the June 20, 2018 City Council meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
Unrelated, kind of related. Could I ask this question? Sergeant Levitt? Thank you, coming back. Eddie, Sergeant. Okay, at my colony, we have animals that have wandered in and joined it. And they look like they are just house pets. Can we have animal control come over and scope or scan these animals to see where they really belong? Or, there's 6 dinner SIDS, they might live somewhere else.
Can we catch them? Can we touch them?
1 or 2 of them seem awful tame. I just want to make sure that they're not abandoned. And knowing the address is the only thing I can figure out as a way. Or are readers available to the public to be able to buy them?
You can buy anything online. They're pretty costly, though.
They are?
Yeah, but, I mean, if you have a cat that you can touch and it's tame, we'll come over and scan it for you and see if it's owned.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Agenda item number 8, citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by the committee unless that subject is on the agenda, scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward, give your name for the record. Anybody wish to be heard? All right, I will close citizen participation, and the recommending committee today is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time and effort.